Greetings to all. This video includes the analysis of Paradiso Canto 4, lines 64 to 114. Yes, what you can see in these lines 64 to 69. The other question that is troubling thee is less envenomed. It breeds no sedition to turn thee elsewhere and away from me. That heavenly justice should to human vision appear unjust arises from belief and not from vile heretical misprision. So now Beatrice starts talking about the second question, the one more related to Piccarda. And Beatrice considers this as a less dangerous question. He is having a doubt regarding how divine justice works. It is related to faith, not regarding heresy. It is not against belief. Scriptures say that man is not really able to fully understand the divine justice. Both questions are ever related to the doctrine of free will. So Beatrice says Dante felt this doubt from an insufficient faith, not from heretical misunderstanding. But since thy mental reach is not too brief to grasp this truth, neither will I refuse to please thee and to give thy mind relief. If this is violence, when brute force subdues a sufferer who does nothing to endorse it, why then these souls could not plead that excuse? For if the will want will, nothing hence force it. But as fire acts by nature, it will act, though thousand gales of violence beat across it. But our least acquiescence signs a pact with force. So did these souls, for to regain their holy house, 'twas will, not power, they lacked. Beatrice says, violence means that the one who suffers has not abated force in any way. Then there is no excuse the souls can claim. If any capitulation to an external force, it's a violation of God's love in itself. It is outrageous. At least at first sight, how can I conceive a good and loving God who, even if I am forced to have a certain behavior, gives me the responsibility for having broken some types of vows or promise to God, says Beatrice. So Beatrice is giving an assertion to the freedom of the will. Yes, that uncorrupted will which could sustain Lawrence and hold him steadfast on the grill and harden Mucius to his own hand's pain, would, to the road they had been forced from, still have thrust them back the moment they were loosed, but it is all too rare that single will. These words, if rightly gathered and perused, should rid thee of the doubt that otherwise might oft return and leave thee much abused. But a fresh obstacle now meets thine eyes, of such a sort that scrambling over it unaided were a very enterprise. So Beatrice, in order to support her argument regarding the freedom of will, mentions two examples. And throughout the history of Christianity, we had many martyrs. They were ready for martyrdom. They were serene about giving away their life when faced with a life that did not allow them to live according to their faith or religion. Here Beatrice mentions two characters. First one is Saint Lawrence, a deacon of the Church of Rome, who suffered martyrdom, and on being grilled alive on an iron frame, he remained steadfast, refusing to reveal where the treasures of the church were hidden. And the second person is Mucius Scaevola, on being ordered by Lars Porsena of Clusium to be burned alive, thrust his right hand into the flame and held it there without flinching. Porsena was so impressed by his fortitude that he spared his life. So Beatrice says Picarda and Constance could have resisted those who forced them from their convents, just as early martyrs accepted death rather than betraying their faith. The will consents to the violence because of fear, even if one's will does not consent absolutely. If their will had remained alike, like that which held Saint Lawrence on the grid and made Mucius treat his right hand with severity, it would have pushed them back towards the path from which they were taken as soon as they were free. But such strong will is all too rare. And now Beatrice says, now if you have understood, the doubt is resolved. But now another gulf across your track meets your eyes, which would make you wary before you crossed it alone. Yes, now you can see a fresh obstacle in front of your eyes. Beatrice says, firmly have I impressed upon thy wit that souls beatified can tell no lie. So near the primal truth these spirits sit. Beatrice says, I have surely instilled in your mind that spirits who are blessed cannot tell a lie because they live close to the primal truth. Okay, these lines are hints to what Beatrice said in Canto 3, lines 31 to 33. Okay, earlier itself, Beatrice has told Dante that the souls in paradise cannot depart from truth because they are living along with God. Let's move on to the next set of stanzas. Now comes Picarda. Constance never put by devotion to the veil, she told thee here. And thus we seem to differ, she and I. Brother, it oft befalls will that to steer clear of danger, men will do things odious in their own eyes, constrained to this by fear. Urged by his father's prayer, Alcmaeon thus his mother slew and turned unfilial, lest piety should make him impious. So Beatrice continues her speech to Dante. She says, you might have understood from Picarda that Constance maintained her devotion to the veil, so that Picarda appears to contradict me. Brother, yeah, Beatrice says to Dante, brother, many times before things have been done to escape danger that were against the grain and not fitting. So, Alcmaeon, moved by his father's prayer, killed his own mother and to be pious, rendered himself impious. Okay, here Beatrice mentions three characters. The father character is Amphiaraus, Amphiaraus. Then Amphiaraus' wife, Eriphyle, Eriphle, and their son, Alcmaeon, Alcmaeon. So Amphiaraus, foreseeing that the expedition against Thebes would prove to him, he hid himself away so as to avoid joining it, but his wife, Eriphyle, betrayed him. So before he died, Amphiaraus enjoined his son Alcmaeon to avenge him by slaying his mother. This slaying of Eriphyle is presented in the carvings on the wall of Mount Purgatory in the book of Purgatorio in Divine Comedy. Okay, so here in Canto 4, the deed of Alcmaeon is cited as an example of qualified will. Actions that are performed through fear or to avoid some greater evil are not really committed against a perpetrator or against the god. Okay, so here Beatrice mentions about two types of will. First one is qualified will, and the second one is absolute will. So Alcmaeon is an example for qualified will or practical will. Then let's move on to the next set of stanzas. Mark at this point, I bid thee, mark with a how will with force, and force with will works in, till the offence has no excuse at all. Absolute will assents not to the sin, yet it assents at least to the extent that it does not refuse lest worse begin. It was the absolute will Piccarda meant, and I the other, speaking on this theme, so that we both speak truth with one consent. So Beatrice says, at this point, I want you to remember that violence is allowed by the will, and they work together so that the offense cannot be excused. The absolute will does not consent to evil, but it does consent in as much as it fears that if it does not, it will encounter worse. So when Piccarda expresses this, she is speaking of the absolute will, and Beatrice of the qualified or practical will, so that together Beatrice and Dante speak the truth. Okay, so it means when Piccarda said that Constance in her heart never put off the veil she wore, she meant that her absolute will remained unchanged. But the qualified will or the practical will, which chose marriage rather than death, assented to the broken vow. Okay, so her qualified will urged her to break the vow with God. So Beatrice is speaking about qualified will. Okay, Beatrice says Piccarda broke that vow using her qualified will. And at the same time, Piccarda said to Dante that, or Piccarda says that Constance never put off the veil she wore. Okay, she continued keeping her that veil in her mind. Okay, veil a nun wears. Yeah, Constance put that veil in her heart. Meaning, yeah, it shows her absolute will. So Beatrice says, me and Piccarda are saying truth. Piccarda says about absolute will, and I speak about the qualified will. Both are true with one consent. Okay, so with this, we have come to line 114. Okay, let's continue the discussion of the rest of the lines in the next class. Thank you.